Hello and welcome back to the GB Fantasy Football channel. Ahead of Game Week 8, we're going to be looking at some data that's gone from the previous 7 game weeks, perhaps a few trends that we might have missed out on, and of course, looking at the most important players to get into our squads ahead of Game Week 8. Now, thank you all for the support on the channel. It has been very humbling. We've hit 1,250 subscribers on the channel. We're en route to 1,300. So if you could hit the subscribe button, that would be greatly appreciated. Hit the notification bell while you're there so you don't miss an upload. It will appear in your sub boxes. And as every Sun Dream Team video comes out on the channel, the hope is always to hit 100 likes. So do hit the like button, hit the thumbs up. It pushes the channel out and it's always greatly appreciated. So let's crack on with the content. First up, I thought it'd be ideal to look at the fixtures going forward from game week 8 all the way up to game week 14. It's a big stretch of fixtures, of course. There is still one more international break, unfortunately, after game week 11. But once that one's come and gone, it's out of the way pretty much, and we can look forward to just club football going forward, which is what we're all after. These 3 week stints, these 4 week stints, one international break, another one, and another one. Having 3 international breaks by the game week 11 deadline is just too much. Now, in this and on this graphic, all the graphics in today's video will be from not only FPL. Go check it out. Cracking website. The link is always in the description down below. Great data driven website. It doesn't just have Sun Dream Team content, but of course it does have that as well. So the fixture ticker has got Liverpool top over the next 7 game weeks, and that is an interesting one, bearing in mind our dilemmas with regards to a certain Egyptian player that they have up front in the name of Mo Salah. They've got Man United, Eintracht Frankfurt, Brentford, Palace, Villa, and I think that's Real Madrid at home with Man City before the international break. I think that's where I'll go up to with this, up until game week 11. Keep it in the next batch of 3 to 4 game weeks, and then we'll go from there. Manchester City is up next. Everton at home, Villarreal, Aston Villa, Swansea, Bournemouth. I'm not sure who that is in the Champions League, actually, with BRO, and Liverpool. Of course, all these European teams, you've got Champions League, you've got Europa League, you've got Conference League, they will all be dominating the best fixtures going forward. As you can just see from the graphic, bar Man United, you've got Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle. Bar Man United, losing my words there. Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Newcastle United, Chelsea, and we've got Manchester United, Aston Villa, and then Tottenham. So the only team that doesn't break into, well, the only team that breaks into that mould, I should say, that isn't in Europe is Manchester United. Plenty of incredible fixtures for the European doublers, and this is why I'm always banging that drum and constantly saying, even in any Sun Dream Team video, it's essential that we get these European doublers into our teams as soon as possible. Boost that team value above the 50 million that we got at the start of the season. Try and get it up to your 53, 54 million and beyond so we can get the best assets in from these teams. Of course, at the start of the season, it's been a little bit easier than we probably would have predicted. Phil Foden didn't start very well for Manchester City, so his price wouldn't have been as essential. Bukayo Saka picked up an injury towards the start of the campaign, slowly coming back into it now, but it was 6.5 million, I'm tempted to say, at the start of the season, and it's only just coming back onto our radars. Cole Palmer being another expensive asset that we've looked at. We've had occasionally, especially in my case, he had a 9 minute or so cameo. I think it was 25 minutes or whatever it was against Manchester United. And that's been it, really. He didn't play against West Ham away, so he's not really been in our thoughts. So that 50 million initial budget has been slightly easier to spread around than we probably would have thought going into game week 1. Other teams of note on this list: Chelsea, as I said, they've got Forest away, Ajax at home, Sunderland at home, Wolves away, Tottenham at home, and then carry a bag with Wolves at home going into the international break. Manchester United are the team that dominate the non-European fixture team players. They've got Liverpool away, which is a very tricky fixture. So for those of you who do still have, I don't know, a Bruno Fernandes or a Dorgus knocking in your team, I'd probably look to move it on. Then they've got Brighton at home, Forest away, and then Tottenham away before the international break. So where teams in the European scene and teams that are still in the Carabao Cup, I've got what you got there: 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 fixtures before the international break. Manchester United only have the 4 fixtures. Now, in my personal opinion, and I think many people who play the game will hold a very similar opinion, When these Carabao Cup fixtures come around in game week 9, I believe it is, there will be mass rotation. You might be lucky, you might get the odd player that plays the double, that carries through, and potentially even plays all 6, 7 fixtures out of this next batch after we come back from the international break. But I think you'll be very lucky to get that. Maybe a defensive asset, maybe a goalkeeper, but I see many midfielders and many attackers being rotated in and out to keep the fitness fresh. I think those of the players that don't go away on international duty during this international break might have more chance playing throughout the next batch of fixtures. But that's just a brief look ahead of game week 8 for the teams that we should probably be targeting. It's interesting to note between game weeks 1 and 7 who the biggest point scorers are so far. Of course, this will be contrived of teams that have had a few doubles in game week 2 for the Carabao Cup fixture. There'll be teams that have played throughout Europe so far. Of course, Crystal Palace, I think, are still one European fixture behind many other European teams because they had to do and play their qualifying games to get into the competition. But it's interesting to note a few ownership percentages that we'll get to in just a little while, the price of some of these players, and just the total points scored so far. Now, we can see from the graphic on the screen, Erling Haaland, top of the charts, top of the just everything pretty much data wise. So far, he's gone from 7.5 million at the start of the season to 7.9 million in value. Now, for those of you who don't currently have him, he's owned by 62.7% of the total player base. I think it's going to be very difficult to get him into your teams for those remaining 30 odd percent, whether that's inactive teams or whatever they are. If you aren't one of, sorry, if you are one of those 37%, I'd get to it as fast as possible. 114 points scored over 7 game weeks is an astonishing return on that initial just 7.5 million that you put into him, that investment, as you will. 12.7 points per average per game. Phenomenal. I captained him last game week and he didn't disappoint even with the 9-pointer. Second on this list, Jurrien Timber. 5 million in price. I'm tempted to say it's a little bit more, so these prices might not be 100% accurate. 79 points overall. The second highest point scorer in the game. 22.3% owned over the player base and 8.8 average points per game. And that's without playing that opening fixture away to Manchester United, which was a clean sheet for Arsenal. Ben White played in that one, so you'd assume if he'd have played in that, in my opinion, he is a much better player at the minute than Ben White. Ben White looks like he's off it a little bit. Potentially the injuries have caught up with him over time and he's still taking a little while to get up to speed. But he will take minutes off Timber. Now, why Timber's playing is going to be an incredible asset. As we just spoke about, those European teams have probably got 7 fixtures before the next international break. If I had to guess, I'd say Timber starts at least 5 of those fixtures. Will he start 6? I'm not too sure. And I don't think he starts 7, injuries permitting, that is. If Ben White drops out the squad with an injury and Timber has to play for whatever reason, or Mosquera plays at right back, I think that's the only way that Timber can play 7 out of 7. He's obviously still coming back from his ACL injury that he had a couple of years ago, and he had surgery over the summer, if I'm not mistaken, as well. But he's an incredible asset. A lot of those points would have come from where he scored 2 and got an assist in one game, but over the course of the other fixtures, he's doing exceptionally well. Semenyo, a single game week player. His team got knocked out in the second round of the Carabao Cup in Bournemouth. They didn't even have a third round fixture, so he's had a lot less fixtures than all the other European teams. He's still the third highest scoring player in the entire game, 72 points overall. His massive 20-point haul in game week 7 would have catapulted him up this list. 9 points average, so he's got the second highest average points across the entirety of this list on the screen. Daniel Munoz slowly coming into his own. Of course, last season he was a lot cheaper in price, so 5.6 million, a very premium price defender this campaign. 70 points overall, 6% ownership with 7.8 points average per game. Going throughout the list, other notable players: Moises Caicedo, Gabriel Magalhaes of Arsenal, another defender, Mark Guéhi, which is why I spoke about Daniel Munoz not in the highest of regards there. It's 1.2 million cheap, so 1 million cheaper in price. He's scored, what's that, 4 points less so far this season, so not much at all. So if you went for Guéhi over Munoz, I still think that is a very valid option going forward. Nick Pope, a notable player. I thought at the start of the campaign, Pope's minutes would be taken away from him. I thought Aaron Ramsdale would play a few more games, but it seems like Ramsdale has been confined just to the Carabao Cup, and Nick Pope will play all the other fixtures with Premier League, with Champions League, and Newcastle's defence does look very solid. Tino Livramento in my own squad for a little while. Unfortunately, due to injuries, I've had to take him out. But the Newcastle defence does look good, and their fixtures are okay going forward, but they're not too great. Enzo Fernandez, one to maybe monitor going forward, with the potential Cole Palmer injury being one to just keep an eye on. I think Cole Palmer is scheduled to be out for at least until game week 10 at the very earliest. And I think with a niggling injury like that, and on Sun Dream Team, the need for reliability with regards to our players and them actually being out on the pitch, we have no bench cover. I think Cole Palmer might be one to keep on the back burner for quite some time. So Enzo Fernandez potentially playing in that number 8 role, in that number 10 role, and maybe on penalties. 60 points overall, 6 points average, ticking along very nicely. Jack Grealish, another single game week player on this list, 59 points for him across the season so far, with an average of 6 points, well, 6.6 points per game. And then the remaining two to round off this list, Mohamed Kudus, 4.8 million, 59 points for the season so far, 6.6 average points, a very decent asset. And then Gomez from Brighton, of course, 59 points for this season so far, 7.4 points average. But I think he got 30 or 40 in a single game in the Carabao Cup where he scored 4. So personally, I wouldn't be having him in my team going forward. But as you can see, the big hitters for this campaign are smashing it out of the park. And Erling Haaland is in a different stratosphere all to himself. Just a quick little segment with regards to the ownership across players in the top 1k. Of course, they are the positions in the leaderboard that we're all vying to currently get into. The higher we can get up, the quicker we can get up, more than likely our team value is going to soar as well. Now, there's quite a few players on this list that did surprise me and quite a few that really didn't. Of course, Erling Haaland, it's like the last slide, top of the charts, 100% ownership in the top 1k. So if you own Erling Haaland, the only way you're going to gain any ground on any player is if they don't captain him and you do, which is always an interesting place to be in. I was there towards the back end of last season when I was up in the top leaderboards, your third, second, first positions. You're having to look to see who people are captaining and then hope they blank and so on and so forth. But Erling Haaland, 100% ownership in the top 100 teams. Sorry, this is top 100, not top 1k. Top 100 teams. Mickey van der Ven, 70 teams own him, 70% ownership. It's just, it's surprising. I thought at the start of the season for 3.5 million, it wasn't great value, but clearly a lot of people did, and he's done exceptionally well points wise at the start of the campaign. Tottenham's fixtures are starting to slowly turn into more trickier ties, so that would definitely be one to keep an eye on. Kudus, 50% ownership in the top 100. Semenyo, 46% in the top 100, which I'm very surprised about. Of course, that 20-point haul in Game Week 7 would have catapulted a lot of teams from inside the top 1k into the top 100. So for those of you who did hang on to him for just one more week, it's massively paid out. Yuri and Timber, 38% owned, same as Jeremy Doku. Both maybe rotation risk going forward, as I spoke about. Christian Romero being 37% owned inside the top 100. So there's a lot of Tottenham defensive ownership inside the top 100. So anytime Tottenham keep a clean sheet or anytime that these players do get some attacking returns or tackle points, it's definitely going to harm your ability to climb up those leaderboards if you don't have one of those players in your team at the minute. Jackie Grealish, 36%. Mark Guéhi, 33% as well. So the Crystal Palace defence is covered a little bit there. Mohamed Salah, only 33% owned inside the top 100. Now, that is probably what's actually got those players there at the minute. Of course, Mo Salah has not started the season very well at all. Down on his points from last season quite substantially, but with a European double coming in Game Week 8, for those players who don't have Mohamed Salah, if he goes off big, it's going to hurt their ranking substantially once again. Phil Foden, 30%. I know a few of you who did bring him in ahead of the Burnley tie and the Brentford tie would hope for a few more points, so maybe one to look to get out of your teams with the Man City fixtures, and potentially with Marmoush coming back into the team as well. Voltemada, 29% owned. I actually thought he would be lower ownership than someone like a Anthony Gordon, but it seems that Voltemada is actually a higher owned player. Surprising to me. I thought the majority of players brought Gordon in with that 0.3 rise in game week 7, but clearly Voltamada and his very fortuitous penalty goal in game week 7 has tipped him into the top 100 ownership, slightly more probably. Vicario once again leaning into that Tottenham defensive ownership. So in this list alone, we've got Vicario, we've got Van der Ven, and we've got Christian Romero. Not a lot of people have clearly gone for the fullbacks in Porro, Spence, and Udogi. That rotation has caused people to be put off. But with that trifecta at the back, any time the Tottenham defence is coming away with a clean sheet, it's really harming our ability to just escalate our rank massively. Tijani Reinders 25% owned and Enzo Fernandez at 24% owned. I'll be intrigued to see what the ownership of these kind of players are going into the Game Week 8 deadline and beyond going forward. Just looking back at last week for Game Week 7, of course, the data isn't quite in yet for Game Week 8. These kind of figures only come out once the deadline has passed, so we won't see these kind of figures until Game Week 8 has come and gone and that deadline is closed. Not this Saturday, unfortunately, but the following week. Now, the most transferred out players is always an interesting one for me. People go up in form, they go down in form, but it's mainly the price that intrigues me. How much these 0.2, 0.3 decreases in value tend to affect our transfers going forward. And as you can see, in the top 1k, ahead of the Game Week 7 deadline, that is, João Pedro was the most transferred out player across that specific just volume of players. 24% transferred him out. Trevor Chalobah, another one at 13.9%. So the back-to-back red cards in that, I think Chalobah got sent off in the Premier League at home to Brighton. João Pedro got sent off in the Champions League. So both of them missing fixtures. I think taking them out, protecting yourself against the 0.3 drop in João Pedro's case was very much a good decision. Mo Salah, 10.7% of people in the top 1k transferred him out. Now, it paid dividends in game week 7. Of course, he only scored 3 points, but I can't get past the fact that Mo Salah is Mo Salah, and that's probably going to hurt my rank. Now, I'm definitely keeping him for game week 8. Game week 9 going forward is going to be a play by the ear kind of thing. And Tino Livramento, 7.9% table of people taking him out ahead of game week 7. So 3 out of the top 4 were taken out for either red cards, in both cases for Pedro and Chalobah, or a 2-month injury in Tino Livramento. The only one that breaks the mould in the top 4 was Mo Salah. Now, he did drop in price, but I also think it's people's way of spreading the money around and potentially getting a few more premium price midfielders or potentially a few premium defenders in, with defenders ruling the land so far at the start of the season. Richarlison, 6.9% out. Didn't start at the weekend, just gone. I think it was Matthias Tell up front, so an understandable one. Jack Grealish, he will be not cup tied, but because he's on loan from Man City, he will be competition tied. I think that's the phrase anyway. It's not springing to mind. He won't be able to play against them because that's his parent club. Other players to note on this list that were transferred out ahead of game week 7. Alexander Isak with 5% transferred out. He picked up the assist for the Gakpo goal. Mohamed Kudus definitely punished those 4% of players that took him out ahead of game week 7, picking up a goal and an assist, a very good haul. Christian Romero, Tijani Reinders, Mark Cucurella picking up pretty decent points as well. So it just goes to show that despite us having to take out these players, and despite the fact that this year in Sun Dream Team we can carry over transfers from one game week to another when we don't actually need to use all the transfers, there's still that want to keep our budget high, not let it drop too much, and in the pursuit of keeping our budget high, from time to time we will leave a few important points behind. Covering the captaincy from game week 7 in the top 10,000 players, it might come as no surprise to you that a certain Norwegian at Manchester City dominated proceedings. 94.3% of the player base in the top 10k captained Erling Haaland. Now, that is an incredible amount. I didn't see many polls leading into the game week 7 deadline for captaincy. I was kind of busy at the time. I knew it would be big because his form is just incredible. It's out of this world. But 94.3% of people in the top 10k to captain him, that's an astonishing amount. Now, I'm not too sure if it will keep that kind of percentage going into game week 8. Of course, we're now into double season again rather than just a single. Man City had Brentford away. Liverpool, obviously not on tip-top form, had a tricky fixture. But the other players who dominated, who participated in these percentages for the top 10k. Mo Salah, 3.9%. So if you went for him, just his 3-pointer, you lost that 6 points on a very high percentage of the player base in the top 10k. Victor Gyökeres, I think he got 3 points, similar to Mo Salah, just a shot on target for Gyökeres. So once again, you've lost that 6 points on 94% of the player base. Now, of course, you can pick these points up elsewhere with other people in your team, but 6 points, it might not seem a lot, but it certainly adds up. Bukayo Saka, for those of you who did go for him over Erling Haaland, you caught a little bit on the large majority of the player base. Saka was initially on 10 points, got given an extra point, I believe, for tackle, so that put him on 11. Nick Voltemada, tempted to say he tied it up with Erling Haaland for the 9-pointer. So the real big winners this week were probably the 0.2% that punted and plumped for Anton Semenyo. Massive 20-pointer, so huge point gained over Erling Haaland. But it's that risk versus reward kind of thing. Of course, you can go against Erling Haaland. There's nothing wrong with that. Play the game your way, as one of my favourite FPL content creators says that's his motto. And I fully believe that's the case with Sun Dream Team. Don't follow the crowd. If you follow the crowd, you're just going to get caught in the land of the sheep, basically. So going for Semenyo paid off massively. But in a double game week, can you go against Erling Haaland? Is there enough data currently for us to go for another player who is going to offer reliability, many routes to points? Erling Haaland, can he be stopped? I think if he goes through a double where he doesn't score and you've captained someone else and you've gambled, you will make massive leaderboard grounds and rank grounds in that game week. It's just if it goes the other way. And this stage of the season, you don't want to go with the crowd, but you don't want to veer too much away from the potential template that might be forming. And I think with Erling Haaland and that double game week in game week 8, he might not be 94.3%, but if I had to throw my hat in the ring, I'd still say he will be the most captain player as well. That does indeed conclude today's video. A shorter one than normal, so leave a comment down below on if you prefer the shorter form content or the longer 30 to 50-minute videos that normally come on the channel. Of course, throughout the international break, there still will be plenty of content coming around. I think there's going to be a differential video coming in the next few days, or at least one of my next few uploads. So if you're excited to see that, leave a comment down below on what kind of things that you'd like to see as well, other content-wise. Trying to keep things flowing, trying to keep the excitement. Of course, the international break really does its best to sap that kind of energy out of us, but club football is coming around the corner and we've got to keep our teams in the best possible position ahead of game week 8. Just keep everything on track and don't lose sight of Sun Dream Team. That's what I'd say. Have a little break, have a day off or two, but if you're like me, I can't help but tinker with my team, and that's one of the lovely things about Sun Dream Team as well. The fact that you can put your transfers in place and then reverse them straight away, see if your team's looking good, see if you could potentially get a few points per million out of a different player. And I think that's one of the reasons, or one of the many reasons, why I love it so much. Now, as always, in the description down below will be the link to my Sun Dream Team League. Go ahead and join. We're closing in on 450 members so far. Also down there, whilst there, check out my socials, TikTok, Instagram, all the good stuff. Go check it out as always. Please do hit a thumbs up on the video. 100 would be greatly appreciated. Subscribe to the channel. 1,250 has been hit. We're on the road to 1,300, 1,400. If we could hit 1,500, it'd be incredible. Notification bell so you don't miss an upload and all that good stuff. So thank you very much for watching today's data-driven Sun Dream Team video, seeing the best ways that we could potentially go up in the leaderboards ahead of game week 8 and maybe get a few little steps ahead of the competition. So thank you very much for watching. You'll be seeing me in a new video very soon.